Hey guys, and welcome back to another daily read with Caleb and
Brandon.
what's up? We're not good at this. Okay, so what we're talking about today is the daily Bible reading for the day, which is 1 Corinthians chapter 6. We're going to keep it short. Remember, these are going to be short, to the point, and it works really well. Brandon, do you want to talk about yours first or second?
I mean, I can talk about mine, I guess.
Go for it.
What I liked about today's reading, it's kind of toward the second part of chapter 6. Just really thinking about all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. And I asked the youth. I sent a questionnaire out to my youth group that we're covering these things as well. And something that I asked was, would you jump off a house knowing that it would paralyze you, or would you drink poison? And that sounds like a really far-fetched question, but it's really applicable because if we can read the Bible and it tell you that there's something that's dangerous to us, we would keep from it. You know what I'm saying? The same ways I feel like that's what Paul is trying to say in this is, stay away from this stuff. And we now covered 3 chapters where he's talking about sexual immorality and other sins that's against ourself, our body. He's trying to, really hold us accountable to that. So,
yeah. And I think what's really cool about that, at least how it ties into the section before that, is that just that level of accountability. So it feels almost like, I'm going to kind of reverse back just a little bit into the first half of the chapter, but it almost feels like a completely different chapter. In fact, right before we started recording, that's one of the things that you said. It's like almost like, are these guys reading 2 different chapters? Because this first part's actually about lawsuits between believers. So the really important, I think, context here is this is not saying that you should never take another quote unquote Christian to court. Instead, what it's referring to is these frivolous lawsuits that would pop up between people, things that we would consider now to be silly things that are of what should never be taken beyond 2 people, right? So these might be things like what we would in our legal system now refer to as frivolous, but what I would probably classify as non-criminal activity. So that being said, important caveat before we talk about this is, if someone commits a crime, obviously that person needs to be taken to jail. And more likely than not, if someone commits a crime, especially a serious one, that probably shows, again, more likely than not, that they're not actually a believer because their actions would be more in line with the works of the flesh, not the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5. That being said, let's look in, let's see. Oh, yeah, okay, so verse 4 right here. So what Paul is saying is, so if you have such cases, why do you lay them before those who have no standing in the church? I say this to your shame. Can it be that there is no one among you wise enough to settle a dispute between the brothers? And I think that's a really important thing because I think, Brandon, you and I have talked about so many times Matthew 18, that the right path for reconciliation when there's disagreement among believers is that you go to one another. And so I think really a good takeaway from this part, you were talking about fleeing from sexual immorality. A good takeaway from this part would be that, hey, listen, when there's a beef between you and another believer, don't take it to someone who doesn't need to be brought in on it. Settle it between you two, because that's really the way of Jesus. The gospel is all about reconciliation, and that also means reconciliation to one another when we have beef.
Yeah, for sure. And even ties into Matthew 18. That's what they say, brother sins against you, go to him. And I think that's what we're called, go to one another.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today. Again, it's short and to the point. This is the daily read with Brandon and Caleb. We love you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. We will see you then.
See you guys.